You do know there are more guns in the country than there are in the city.
Everybody and their mums is packing round there.
Like who?
Farmers?
Who else?
Farmers' mums.
And we're here. Things.
Hey!
Yeah, we've had
We
bit
are
of time
back.
off. Yeah. It's been over a month since we last recorded a show.
I know, right? But we're here, episode 11.
Yep. Oh, incidentally, if you do download the running order for this, there's it's actually an album cover for Punk Against Trump. And
It looks very cool.
It's actually an album. You can buy it for $5. So if you are so inclined, just look up Punk Against Trump and it will just come straight up. Okay.
It does look very cool.
Yeah. And you can listen to it if you go to the website. You can listen to the whole album. Anyway, so we're going to head straight into the news because time's a factor today. So Microsoft has invented a wristband that could help stem the tremors caused by Parkinson's disease. Thanks to Kev. Thanks to Kev for sending this in. Kev, again, has done the whole show, basically, which is quite funny. So he's basically sent us nearly all the stories and all the links for this one. So the Emma Watch sends small vibrations through a wearer's wrist that can stop the shaking experienced by those with the neurological disease. It vibrates with a distinctive pattern that's been designed to disrupt the feedback loop between brain and hand, Microsoft said. The uncontrollable shaking is one of the main symptoms of Parkinson's disease, which affects around 127,000 people in the UK. That's just the UK. So it's a significant portion of the population will suffer from it. And it can prevent sufferers from conducting routine tasks such as getting dressed, writing things down, or using a computer. Currently a prototype, the Emma Watch was created by Microsoft developer r4nger5 Zhang for her friend Emma Lawton, a 32-year-old graphic designer who was diagnosed with Parkinson's in 2013. Microsoft unveiled the devices at its annual developers conference in a video that shows Lawton regaining the ability to draw, a passion she has struggled with since her diagnosis. With the Emma on her wrist, Lawton is able to write legibly and draw straight lines, something which she struggles with on her own. The technology has the potential to help Parkinson's patients manage symptoms that include regular functions. The Emma Watch is currently a prototype designed specifically for one person, and a BBC documentary called The Big Life Fix. And it's not clear if it will be released widely, but Microsoft said it has plans to conduct further work in the area. The goal of further research is to determine whether the Emma Watch could help other people with similar Parkinson's symptoms. Which I should think you might have to sort of like to, I don't know, calibrate it properly for each person.
Yeah,
I
reckon so.
So worth doing.
Yeah.
And if you look at it, if you go to the link, you can actually see a picture of it. And it's like the size of a wristwatch. So it's fitted with sensors and software that can monitor other patients' other symptoms, including tremors and stiffness, to create further products. Once these symptoms can be identified and measured, it's possible to develop technology and devices that helps humans manage their symptoms. AI is used to classify the sensor information and elicit real-time responses on small devices like wearables. Yeah, I don't think people with Parkinson's would mind allowing that data to be used for other things.
Yeah.
The designer has previously designed cutlery that can react to people's movement to help them prevent them from spilling food.
It's a great idea.
You're basically giving people their life back.
Yeah.
For something that looks like it should be dirt cheap. Like, if you've got this thing, it can't cost a lot to make this thing. Anyway, okay, and that was in the Telegraph. Okay, and so yeah, I really hope they put some effort into doing that. And once you open that floodgate, and this has only come about because you can do short-run sort of product building. You can prototype things much more easily now.
Oh yeah, like it's with the 3D printing and the lower cost of computing devices now.
Yeah, so you can put an Arduino together, and I'd love to see this go open source. Sort of like I'd love to see the case design sort of available as a free download for a 3D printer and the chip, whatever chip they're using, to be freely, more or less cheaply available, so people just build it. Don't leave it in the hands of big corporations or governments because they'll fuck it up. Release it into the wild and say, look, the software has built-in connectivity, so when it hooks up to Wi-Fi,
yeah.
You can plug it into your computer and give it a Wi-Fi key. It'll send data back from your watch telling them how you're using it and whether it's working. And then they can create a tweak program that will tweak it precisely It's in everybody with Parkinson's. It's in their interest to get this to work and to be as calibratable as possible.
Exactly.
Even
It'd be
reduced your tremors by 50%.
still a lot of. That's a big
Still be able
difference.
You still get your dignity back,
Yeah.
and it should be dirt cheap. Because it looks like it's a one-time shot to alleviate those symptoms. You get the watch, you make sure it's got power, and you can get on with your day.
Mm-hmm. It's a really fantastic thing. I remember seeing the actual video of it. It's really good.
Yeah. Anyway, you're up next, man.
Oh, yeah, so Boy 11 hacks cybersecurity audience to give lessons of weaponization of toys. An 11-year-old cyber ninja has stunned an audience of security experts by hacking into their Bluetooth devices to manipulate a robotic teddy bear, showing in the process how interconnected smart toys can be weaponized. Ruben Paul, who is in 6th grade at school in Austin, Texas, and his teddy bear Bob wowed hundreds at a cybersecurity conference in the Netherlands. Quote, from airplanes to automobiles, from smartphones to smart homes, anything or any toy can be part of the Internet of Things, IoT. In quotes, said the small figure pacing the huge stage at the World Forum in The Hague. From Terminator to teddy bears, anything or any toy can be weaponized. To demonstrate, he deployed his cuddly bear, which connects to the cloud via Wi-Fi and Bluetooth to receive and transmit messages. I'm not gonna. This next bit's insulting.
Yeah, we can just leave that. Essentially,
we'll
use
leave
a
that
Raspberry Pi and a Wi-Fi connected teddy bear to sort of fuck about with people's stuff.
Yeah, most internet.
Yeah,
sorry.
After you.
I just keep going on to the good bit. Most internet-connected things have Bluetooth functionality. I basically showed how I could connect to it and send commands to it by recording audio and playing Delight, he told AFP later. IoT home appliances and things that can be used in our everyday lives, our cars, lights, refrigerators, everything like this that is connected can be used and weaponized to spy on us or harm us. It can steal private information, such as passwords, as remote surveillance to spy on kids, or employ GPS to find out where a person is, he said. More chillingly, a toy could say, meet me at this location and I will pick you up. Which is pretty scary. You get really scary child molesters hacking toys.
Well, it's not just that. I mean, say your fridge is connected to the internet.
Well, yeah, that as
and
well.
Say it's an important fridge. Say it's a swing voter on an important government vote.
Yeah, and it starts
Say
giving
they're
you
gonna
targeted
vote on
advertising.
Well, not targeted advertising, but it could do things like, in the middle of the night, it could switch off your fridge or adjust the temperature. So, say the sausages in your fridge go off.
Yeah.
And they, because they're looking at when you're ordering food, it's generally you're going through the sausages or you're going through something that can be made to go off that could take you out of that vote.
Ah, I see.
That's how small a change you'd have to make.
Yeah, it starts making people ill for the sake of getting.
It sounds far fetched, but those are the things that would go unnoticed.
Yeah, no, you're right. It
Remove
would.
a few key voters from that day's
Yeah.
vote. You sort of say, so 2 days before, because food poisoning is about 48 hours, that fridge goes off in the middle of the night and keeps going off until the sausages go off.
Yeah.
Or it's got a thermostat control that can raise the temperature above what a fridge should be. So it raises the temperature to room temperature for a week before he does the vote, and then turns the fridge back on at say 1 in the morning. And then it all sort of kicks in and everything looks like it's cold and safe, but it isn't.
Yeah, it's already got like salmonella and shit in it.
What if you've got one of those Nest thermostatic controls and it controls your bath water?
Yeah.
And you're scalded by your shower. All these things, all these tiny little things. Your car, say it just says it needs a service and stops.
While you're on the way to the polling station.
Yeah, sort of like, so you've got a certain amount of time or you've got a certain flight to catch and you miss that flight because somebody doesn't want you to go somewhere. And that's not even going after passwords or information about people or anything like that.
It's very scary.
All they've got to do is make you or your child sick.
Yeah. For
you not to be able to go anywhere.
The Internet of Things is an interesting concept, but it will be a scary concept, and it won't be a useful or safe concept until we are able to... Well, it's not going to be a safe concept while companies are allowed to play hard and fast with security.
Yeah.
And whilst we're in this situation, I mean, we were in this situation where recently we've had these ransomware attacks. And these ransomware attacks have happened purely because companies don't give a shit about security. They do the absolute bare minimum to meet the legal requirements. And this happens, this is everything. It's always the same when it comes to companies. They always do the bare minimum to meet the legal requirements and then fuck everything else because it will impede their profit margins.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's it. That's all they exist to do is make money, make profit, get profit, more profit year after year. Fuck the consumers, fuck everything else. So when it comes to, oh, there's a big security hole here, how much money is that going to cost us? X. Oh, we can't afford that, that's too much.
It's the digital version of that bit in Fight Club where he goes, so if, you know, the cost of paying out the lawsuits is less than the cost of a recall, we don't do
that. Yeah.
Which car company do you work for? I'm not going to tell you, but it's a big one. And it's just like, you know, they're not going to do anything until some major lawsuit makes it too expensive to just play like idiots.
Yeah.
And there's some sort of legislation in place to stop them. But basically, I really can't stress this enough. It's not... These companies are putting out crappy products. Now, if you put out a crappy product, you shouldn't succeed in the marketplace. If you're going to be purely capitalist about it, there should be a sort of like, you know, right, nobody will buy it. You know, if you don't want it hacked, don't put it on Wi-Fi or Bluetooth or on the internet. Why the fuck does your fridge need to be on the internet?
Yeah.
Why does the nuclear power station need to be online?
It doesn't.
At what point do you just go, no, that's unnecessary? Why does your home thermostat need to be online?
It doesn't. Nothing needs to be online. Well, none of those things, need to be online.
You know, I mean, I can sort of understand if you've got, say, fish. You keep tropical fish and you want to be able to sort of go on holiday, but you want to be able to monitor them and you want to be able to feed them. So you don't have to inconvenience one of your friends to go around and feed your fish while you're away. I can sort of understand why you might do that.
Right, but even in those cases, you see, this is the thing, and this is what we're going to have a problem with, what causes all these problems. You've got systems, and this is again why I say the Internet of Things is a neat idea, but it's going to be failing constantly whilst we have essentially a Luddite-ish look at things. This is too much money for us to secure properly, and a Luddite-ish way of looking at things.
Yeah.
You can do... There's nothing wrong with the Internet of Things if you do it yourself and you're securing it properly. It's like, yeah, I could do home security system where the security system is actually on the internet for me to get access to anywhere I want. But I'd secure it properly so that only I will be able to get access to it.
Yeah.
But when you hand that off to a company, you're relying on that company to do it for you.
Yeah.
And the chance of that company's security being defeated is probably the same amount of chance of them having a bug that they haven't disclosed. It's again like thing you were saying. It's like which we only do a recall if it's cheaper than dealing with the lawsuits. It's that sort of thing. You know, it's why would they fix a bug if no one's going to take advantage of it? We've seen that with like Microsoft up until like they really had a terrible name and they started changing their ways. Microsoft, there was so many stories about Microsoft being told about bugs in their operating systems and not doing a thing about it to fix them and just leaving them. Oh, it's well, we know it's a critical bug that can like destroy the operating system, but hardly anyone knows about it. It doesn't matter. This case, with the recent ransomware attacks, Microsoft had released a critical patch 2 months prior to the attack. The reason the attacks worked is because, again, the companies who were involved in it was like, oh, that's too much money. It's too much money for us to take down all these machines and do the upgrades and do these critical patches. That's what it was.
Who is it who's looking after their IT now at the NHS?
It depends. It's different depending on which trust it is.
Oh, right.
There's not one company doing the whole NHS. It's different per hospital. It's different per trust. It's all random.
Wow.
But yeah, it's just like they just didn't want to spend the money to get it done. I mean, it's not like the money cost would have been taking down the devices and installing the updates. And this is how tight these people in business are. They can't even be that the downtime costs them too much money, and the downtime is like nothing. But But they still see it as too much. They see it as too much money, I should say. Yeah. This is half the problem. It's just, while we've got this laissez-faire capitalist attitude, and I say attitude there because there aren't many actual laissez-faire capitalist systems in the world. There are a lot of companies and corporations who try and run it as laissez-faire as possible. By being very, very fucking sneaky. Well, there's a lack of ethics. Capitalism has no ethics.
Oh, no. No, at all.
At all. Has no moral ethics. It's all down to the market. And this like the biggest thing. It's like, oh, well, the market will dictate what things succeed and what don't succeed. Yeah. After X amount of people have been fucked over by sneaky, shady companies. Yeah. Do those people get their money back? No. The companies get to write off their losses. Oh, look, we've had this thing happen to us. Whoops. Sorry. It's the corporation's fault. Not mine. Not me personally. Not me personally who was the CEO and actually was personally responsible for it. It was the company's fault. So we'll wind up the company because the corporation is legally a person. And then I'll go off and make another company and do exactly the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just that nobody's all that interested in securing things that affect just ordinary people. As soon as a business gets affected, all the shit gets real.
Yeah. Companies don't give a shit about actual people.
I mean, but again, if you think about it, for technologically advanced governments, the fact that all this stuff is open and open to hacking is only an advantage.
Yeah.
So it's weird. I would advise everybody to start using a VPN and not having any sort of IoT stuff that can't be secured. Because once something's on your network, on your router, if you can talk to it, you can talk to, without any restriction really, any other machine on that network.
You can do a bit more securing with it, but that requires a level of that requires knowledge of firewalls and routers and stuff like that, which could be...
Yeah, it isn't easy or straightforward.
It's not easy. Yeah, it's not.
I mean, because I noticed that when I plugged in an IP camera to my system, there was no... If you could talk to the IP camera, you could then use that link that it had to all the other computers on the network and SSH onto those computers.
Yeah.
Because there was no security on the IP camera. And because it was hardwired into the router, it was deemed as a safe device.
Yeah.
But it wasn't safe Wi-Fi wise. It's Wi-Fi. Although it was wired with a LAN cable to the router, its Wi-Fi was still active.
Yeah.
So you could connect to it if you could find its IP address, which it was broadcasting. And from there on in, you could access the rest of the network.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Messed up. Anyway, we'll move on. US and EU officials have decided against a ban on laptops and tablets in cabin baggage on flights from Europe. I think we talked about this.
Yeah, it was just certain Muslim countries, but now it seems they've gone to the whole of Europe.
Yeah. After a 4-hour meeting in Brussels to discuss the threats to aviation security, officials said other measures were still being considered. US officials had previously said they were looking into extending to Europe a ban on electronics on flights from 8 mostly Muslim countries. The measure was introduced over fears that a bomb could be concealed in a device. The meeting was requested by EU officials after recent reports suggested US authorities had new information regarding laptop parts being turned into explosives. Details of a specific threat have not been made public. An EU source described the briefing as vitally important. The authorities have been assured by their US colleagues that the meeting signalled the start of an era of better communications on security issues under President Donald Trump. The US restrictions introduced in March apply to devices larger than a smartphone from the cabins of flights from Turkey, Morocco, Jordan, Egypt and the United Arab Emirates, Qatar, Saudi Arabia and Kuwait. The UK issued a similar ban on flights from 6 countries, because we're good like that. Steve Landell's a safety expert at the British Airline Pilots Association, said there was a greater risk of lithium battery fires if larger devices were kept in an aircraft's hold. Given the risk of fire from these devices when they're damaged or they short circuit, an incident in the cabin would be spotted earlier, and this would enable the crew to react quickly before any fire becomes uncontainable. If these devices are kept in the hold, the risk that if a fire occurs, the results can be catastrophic. Indeed, there have been 2 crashes where lithium batteries have been cited as in accident reports. So they were seriously thinking that it was safer to store laptops in a hold where a knackered one might just start a fire than the tiny chance of a tiny amount of explosives being smuggled into the cabin. Like, in order to make a laptop work and have half its battery removed because it's packed with C4, C4 with only laptop fragments to act as projectiles isn't going to do that much inside an aircraft cabin.
No.
It would go off and shards of plastic would go everybody, and you might sort of kill 1 or 2 people, but I don't think the parts of a laptop, even one of those sort of magnesium alloy cases, is going to have enough force or weight to sort of punch through the outer skin of an aircraft.
Not really, no.
Whereas they have 2 definite fires that started on board airplanes that caused crashes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's sort of like, it's just more security theatre, isn't it?
Exactly, it is. It is exactly that.
If you announce what your security features are, so that everybody can comply with them, then somebody will just spend the next 6 months thinking about a way around it, or they'll just do what they've been doing now. Well, fuck it. Airports are already no-go zones, but we've still got plenty of targets around. All you got to do is sort of like hang around in the foyer of a theatre. It seems.
Yeah.
And you can cause. It's not as vindictively clever as the Westminster attack.
No.
In that, now we're frightened of Muslims with access to knives and cars. It's not even explosives. They literally can go for a drive and stop off at a hardware store, buy a kitchen knife, and then go nuts.
Yeah.
That's what they've made us frightened of. And then we'll target your children. But nobody said, bombing Muslim countries isn't a really good idea. By bombing them, we're kind of legitimizing them bombing us.
Yeah.
And I literally would give anything for it not to be a Muslim. But I think
I'm hoping so.
At this point, I think they're making absolutely sure before they announced it. But yeah, it's not. But you're going to get, if you bomb someone's country flat on a regular basis, then you're going to get people that think it's quite all right to do the same.
Oh yeah, easily.
Trump's latest bombing of Syria, where they used the mother of all bombs.
Yeah.
And they showed off the picture of the bomb that they were going to drop, and it was the biggest bomb ever dropped, and they decided to drop it on a largely civilian population.
Yep.
We haven't talked about that in the news, but and And obviously something that's more where you live, and a terror attack is bigger news than that. But nobody says, should we maybe stop bombing them and instead actually put boots on the ground and target the people that are doing this? If we want to fight a war, we can't keep bombing civilians.
Exactly, this is the problem. It's like we need to be looking at why these people feel that bombing, doing terror attacks is viable.
Well, I was in Manchester a couple of weeks ago, and there was a stall in Market Street, which is the big thoroughfare near the Arndale Centre, which ironically was shut down briefly today. And there was a stall there with Islam as the religion of peace. Now, and I agree with that, and I think largely most people just want to get on with their lives and do what they got to do to just sort of keep a roof over their heads and stuff like that. And the number of people that actively want to bomb children at a rock concert is extremely tiny.
Yeah.
But I have a feeling that if those same people tried to set up a stall, say this weekend, they will be in danger of being assaulted or accosted in all sorts of ways.
Yeah.
So that effort for peace will be disrupted purely because you'd have to be a nutter to set up a stall after a terrorist attack in the same city.
Yeah.
And I don't blame them if they decide not to. I think it will be the bravest thing on. If I see them this Saturday and they're there, I'm going to go up and commend them on their bravery and commitment to sort of changing the face of it. Because it's not being done because this is the most number of people they could injure. It's being done so that we don't trust any of the other Muslims that have lived here for generations.
Yeah.
We start looking at them with suspicion. And if you have a group of people that are looked on with suspicion, and you find it with Romani people a lot, and travellers, then those people are eventually going to go, you know what, people are looking at me like I'm a thief or a killer or a murderer or a rapist. Why not? If that's how I'm going to be regarded. So the real losers here are the Islamic people in the country. I mean, obviously people have died. The losers are obviously the friends and families of those people that got killed. But the long-term loss, the real danger, is that we turn into a bunch of racist thugs. Just because we've been made frightened, and because the people that did that attack absolutely knew, that's what would happen.
Exactly.
We were so predictable. And, we didn't do that to Irish people. We didn't do that to Irish people when the war for the reunification of Ireland was at its height.
Yeah.
And they bombed and killed people far more often in this country. The death toll from the IRA is much higher. But
definitely.
We're not going to remember that, and nobody suddenly, and yet still we in inverted commas celebrate St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah.
We can't get 5 feet without someone claiming that they're an 8th Irish or some shit like this as a mark of pride, despite the fact that there was like a whole war that went on for years and years and years, and is still the reason all the litter bins in stations are see-through plastic carrier bags.
Yep.
Rather than bins, because we can't have them because people plant bombs. But we might want to look at why those people plant bombs before we hunt them down. Interestingly enough, my printer started printing out in Arabic.
Alright.
Really, really weird. It's definitely Arabic. It started translating everything into Arabic on that I wanted to print out. I had to print out the running order a couple of times and reboot the PC.
That's weird.
Yeah. So everything that was in Times New Roman or bold came out in Arabic. I know it's got nothing to do with it, but it was very, very sort of weird. Anyway, so you're
That's damn weird. Yeah. Chelsea Manning released from prison after serving 7 years for leaking thousands of diplomatic cables and military files to WikiLeaks.
Yay!
The US Army spokesman confirmed to the BBC that she had left Fort Leavenworth military prison in Kansas. Most of what remained of her 35-year sentence was commuted by then US President Barack Obama in January. Her lawyer earlier said that she was excited but likely anxious. Quote, she's ready to finally be able to live as the woman that she is, end quote. Nancy Hollander told the BBC the 29-year-old soldier was born Bradley Manning. A day after she was sentenced to 35 years in prison in 2013, Manning said she had felt female since childhood and wanted to live as a woman called Chelsea. Quote, Quote, "For the first time I can see a future for myself as Chelsea," she said in a statement last week ahead of her release. "I can imagine surviving and living as the person who I am and can finally be in the outside world." She was convicted of 20 charges in connection with the leaks, including espionage. She was acquitted of the most serious charge, aiding the enemy. She defended the leaking by saying she had wanted to spark public debate in the US about the role of the military in US foreign policy, but later apologised for hurting the US, saying she had mistakenly believed she could change the world for the better. In January, she tweeted that she wanted to move to Maryland after being released, a state where she previously lived. And she remained on active army duty while her military court conviction remains under appeal, and she'll have healthcare benefits but will be unpaid, the army said. If the appeal is denied, she could be dishonorably discharged from the US Army, US media say. Chelsea Manning was deployed to Iraq as an intelligence analyst when she leaked hundreds of thousands of files to WikiLeaks. Including those files was video footage of an Apache helicopter killing 12 civilians in Baghdad 2007, and many sensitive messages between the US diplomats. Barack Obama's decision to commute her sentence drew criticism from leading Republicans, including Senator John McCain, who called it a, quote, grave mistake. Manning twice attempted suicide last year at Fort Leavenworth, a male military prison. She also went on hunger strike last year, which she ended after the military agreed to provide her with gender transition treatments. It's pretty cool that Chelsea Manning's got out.
Yeah, it's pretty sad that she went to prison to start with, but
Yeah.
See, I think she needs either to get. I mean, WikiLeaks has been tainted a bit by Julian Assange's.
WikiLeaks has been tainted a lot recently. Not only by Julian Assange being a rapist, but and hiding away from everything for the past 7 years, for reasons that are daft at best. But also, WikiLeaks has properly joined the whole red pill thing and has been massively hyping up conspiracy theories that places like Snopes have been what's that word where you prove something wrong? Discrediting. Well, not discrediting. Well, Snopes have been showing that these conspiracy theories are just conspiracy theories, but WikiLeaks are pushing them because it's fitting their narrative of there being conspiracies in the US government. WikiLeaks was fully behind Trump when Trump was going for the whole, I'm going to become president, I'm going to drain the swamp, etc. WikiLeaks is not a nice place anymore.
Yeah.
Its ethics are in the toilet.
Which is a hassle, really.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I would say that the best thing that could happen for Chelsea Manning is she gets sort of like a job with the Internet Archive.
Yeah.
You know, it's people that really are doing stuff to prevent that stuff. But I mean, it's sort of like everybody overlooks the fact that the US has done some pretty evil shit and kept it secret from the public.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they've done some pretty terrible things in Afghanistan and Iraq.
They really have done some terrible things.
And it's sort of like, and nobody was ever going to call them into account on that. And then everybody acts like, oh, well, we went into your country to fight for your freedom. Yeah, and then if you look at the leaked documents, at the cost of thousands upon thousands of civilians that were just caught in the crossfire by supposedly the most advanced military in the world.
Yep.
You know, this idea of, you know, and it goes contrary to the American line that we're doing surgical strikes.
Yeah, surgical strikes which have civilian casualties.
Yeah. So it's like, it's not like there's a sniper rifle on board that drone where they can target an individual that they know is, you know, supplying weapons or, you know, actively organising terror attacks. We're talking about, you know, dropping a Hellfire missile on a wedding.
Yeah.
And things like that, you know, sort of like, you know, sort of, and they're just listing the killings. There's loads of people that haven't got limbs or eyesight or hearing, or, you know, sort of like they've got trauma because a government doesn't know how to wage a war properly, or wage a war against the right, you know, the entirely the right individuals. And it's not really a declared war. It's not. They haven't declared war on Afghanistan particularly. They're helping with insurgencies, like they're doing in Syria. It's a bit like Vietnam. They're sort of like police actions more than wars. Yeah. They know they can't get UN approval for an actual war against a country. where the government didn't sanction the attacks, and the rest of the population wasn't up for the attacks either. They just whipped up a national fervour and sent people in.
Yeah.
You know, in more than one case where the UN was against it. You know, and it's just because those countries are sitting between the oil pipelines and the big corporations.
Mm-hmm.
And those larger corporations like Lockheed and McDonnell Douglas and General Electric are making the weapons to fight that war with. It's like an arms brochure.
Yeah.
You know, they're doing live reviews of using the latest missiles and shit at the expense of civilians. And then just major companies like Halliburton are making money hand over fist for supplying MREs and uniforms and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, you know, countries that, you know, senior US officials have massive stakes in are making a huge amount of money. And they're doing their very best to make sure their kids aren't going into that war zone.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a huge amount of bullshit. And I have to say, Chelsea Manning did a heroic thing and tried to say, look, this is the bullshit they're up to.
Yeah.
Or you made it
Damn
look
right.
bad. You're doing bad shit. We already look bad to anybody that watches Al Jazeera.
Mm-hmm.
This is just opening it out so anybody can have a look through these files. And yes, she did sign an oath and a contract not to do shit like that.
Mm-hmm.
But when you sort of call your country to account, it's not anti-American. It's a belief that, you know, America should be greater than it's currently perceived.
Yeah.
You know, America's got one of the biggest economies in the world. It's supposedly got democracy. It's got, you know, reasonable human rights. Those are being eroded as we speak. But it has got the chance to be the best, most ideal country in the world. And if you talk to an American, i.e. one that will travel, you'll get this, you know, this sense that they could be some of the best people on earth.
Oh yeah.
And yet they do all this crazy shit for nothing, for no real gain, except for a very few people who are quite prepared to sacrifice lives and well-being of lots of other people. So, you know, if I was faced with that, I would like to think I did something as heroic as saying, look, we can do better than this.
Mm-hmm.
And I am seriously disappointed in what my leaders are doing. So she's out, and if anybody's within the sound of our voices that can give that woman a job, that would be nice. You notice how the article dead names the shit out of her as well.
I know. I saw that bit and I was like, I don't really want to say this, but yeah.
Yeah.
Wasn't very happy with that. With the fact that it's with that bit that was who was born as.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Now we feel the absolute urge to dead name and go on about transition, and you know, it's like it's a person. Fuck's sake.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll come back to that dead naming thing because I've got a little bit to speak about at the end of the show. Right, so the Swedish State Railways has decided to accept under-the-skin RFID tag implants for ticket purchases, arguing it enhances ticketless travel better than having your ticket in your mobile phone. This is also thanks to Kev. Actually, they didn't argue that at all. They just said, we're digital and it works, as if that would justify the rest. Sweden is a European state which, until recently, celebrated the fact that people were able to travel between European and Nordic countries without a passport or other identification papers. But since a few years back, the government train company, which operates with all the efficiency of one, changed that all on its own by requiring photo ID to take the train to the next city. The official reason for going all papierin papers please on people just going to the next town was to prevent second-hand ticket sales of attractive tickets. Oh, you're a very attractive ticket out on your own, unaccompanied. Where are your other tickets? All on your own, I see. Can I buy your drink? Attractive ticket. So this company, the Swedish State Railways, has an insanely bad reputation in the country, known for never arriving on time and a mediocre service. To paint a picture of the service level, the company offers some compensation if passengers are more than an hour delayed with a local train within the European state of Sweden. This is the company now pride itself on being digital, announcing extremely privacy-invasive method for travel. It may well be that it's more convenient. That's obviously not where the cause for concern is. We will never force somebody to have a chip implanted, said Stefan Ray, press spokesman for the State Railways. I wish I could believe this, for this has been the standard line every single time a new privacy invasion has been presented, and there's a catch which sounds all too familiar. We don't rule out giving special advantages to travellers with under-the-skin RFID chips, Ray adds. At what point does this translate to putting ridiculous burden on people without an under-the-skin RFID tag, even if it will technically not require them to implant? That's usually a few years before the option is taken away altogether, judging from history. And as a final note, the article from the Stockholm local paper notes that the local buses, trams and subways are also seeking to start using passenger RFID tags for travel. Yep, people in Sweden are seriously considering under-the-skin RFID tags would be a nice cosy form of bus and subway ticket. Fortunately, this is not something that will go over well in other European states. If I was to describe the Swedish attitude to this in a few words, I would choose trusting and naive. This is in stark contrast to other states, say Germany, which take privacy extremely seriously. Berlin's ticket vending machines to the local public transport sell paper tickets for cash, and it would be inconceivable to remove that option, as was done a long time ago in Sweden, where you can instead buy identified tickets to your identified phone using an identified credit card. And as a final note, the image to this article shows animal tags. That's because it's the technology that they're using. Tag like an animal is quite literal. There is also the concern of malware affecting such chips, which has been proven possible, and with RFID technology, the malware can spread quickly. Privacy remains your own responsibility. Yeah. I believe I would chop off the hand of someone that tried to inject an RFID tag.
Mm-hmm.
Or as Iron Angel said in the IRC, take off one of their thumbs.
Yeah. Screw that. I don't want anything like that.
Yeah,
me.
you don't get to use tools ever again if you think that's a good idea. That's kind of
Yeah.
No. A bit too biblical and a bit too sort of like uber fascist for us. Okay, so that brings us to half time, which is way groovy. We're going to play a track in the halftime music by Cluster Sun, which is called Surfacing to Breathe, courtesy of Shameless Promotions. It's a bit Pink Floyd. It's a very nice track. They're quite sort of Pink Floyd-y, so if you like sort of like dreamy Pink Floyd music, this is what they're going to play. And after the break, we're going to discuss the sort of about the Raspberry Pi Jamboree coming up, and I'll try and do a little bit of a report and a chat about it for the next show, because that's coming up on Saturday. Because I think both me and Graafen believe that this is a really sort of important piece of kit, really. And we'll go into why afterwards. And so we're just going to stop recording and come back to you in a minute. Okay, and we're back. Hopefully you enjoyed the halftime music. And we're into discussion time. Discussion.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm off to the Raspberry Pi Jamboree on Saturday, which is being held in Manchester, which is convenient, otherwise I wouldn't be going to it. And it's like a free sort of bar camp event, so that they'll have workshops going throughout the day, but they'll also have little talks and discussions going on that people set up, the people who attend will give. So I'm kind of interested. I'm going to see what's there, and if there's nothing questioning, nothing along the same sort of themes as how do we introduce this to more people, and if there's nothing like that, I might host a talk myself and get a discussion going on that and see what people's views are. Because at the moment, I mean, the Raspberry Pi is an awesome thing, and only succeeded in its awesome with the Raspberry Pi Zero, which does work, and it's just fucking phenomenal. And I really like that you can have like an OS disk for a Raspberry Pi 3 and plug it straight into a Raspberry Pi Zero with no obvious ill effects. So, but my problem with it is it's had introduction, and it's dirt cheap, and it's there to be tinkered with and made with, but you just see like very white middle class people playing with it.
Yeah, you really do.
It seems to be very like you're privileged if you know about it and you've got access to one, which is kind of the opposite of how I think it should be.
Yeah.
I mean, these things should be being given away at schools. There should be a drive to get these into the hands of children rather than into the hands of teachers. Because if you give it to a teacher, it's then at one remove from the school child. It's then sort of authority handing it down. Whereas if you encourage kids to get hold of them on their own and do cool shit, like build robots and stuff. I mean, there's a guy that's built an FPV robot. So you can drive around this remote controlled vehicle robot, or set it to go around and explore automatically, and it does feedback through to a set of FPV goggles.
It's really cool with that stuff.
Yeah, so now given that most kids have got smartphones now, and especially when you've got things like Google Cardboard, how much harder is it then to team up like an exploratory vehicle with someone's mobile phone, a £2 Google Cardboard, and like a little joystick?
Yeah.
To give you, the parts for that must cost absolutely fuck all. You're talking what, 2 stepper motors as a minimum, or even one really. 1 stepper motor, a control for that motor, and some kind of steering mechanism, like a servo. So at its simplest, it should be like £5 worth of parts and free to download software.
Yeah.
So, isn't that a more interesting thing than having a very sort of like privileged group of people sort of having access to it? I mean, I would say, it's run by the same people that run Manchester Girl, and I'm going to go along before I make up my mind on that stance. But the Raspberry Pi itself seems to be a very privileged piece of equipment.
Unfortunately so, yes.
Because it's not made in the kind of numbers that means that it's in Sainsbury's. If it was in Sainsbury's in large enough numbers, how many children would go, right, fuck having a little Lego set or something out of the toy aisle. I want this this tiny little computer to do cool shit with.
Yeah. It could be the people's computer. It could be the ZX Spectrum of today.
It's a doable thing. I mean, and it comes with computer games programming and educational languages as well. It comes with Scratch built in. It comes with Microsoft Office, LibreOffice. It used to be OpenOffice, free.
Yeah, LibreOffice
as an installed thing. And I don't think it would cost more than a couple of quid to put out an SD card that would come with it. But like a really cheap Raspberry Pi Zero pack. Now, I put together for someone a Raspberry Pi Zero retro card a couple of weeks ago, and they really loved it. And they were right into it, and they were really into playing it, and they thought this was really cool. I got it because I just wanted something groovy to connect to my projector. But the total cost, including the controller, the power supply, the adapters, and the Raspberry Pi Zero itself, was about 12 quid. To put that whole thing together. I mean, it didn't have a monitor because it was designed to be plugged into a telly. But I mean, even in sort of fairly poor households, a lot of children have tellies in their room, so it's not something you need to think about.
Well, exactly. Yeah, they're not difficult to get hold of at tellies.
But just to sell like a 10 quid box with a Raspberry Pi Zero, an HDMI cable that was the right sort to plug it into a telly, a phone charger cable, maybe even a phone charger wall, and a sort of like, and the option to plug in a keyboard and mouse. And maybe even, those super cheap little micro keyboards.
Yeah.
Have you seen those with a touchpad on one end?
I've seen them, yeah.
They're about sort of like 5 quid.
Yeah.
And that's for you to just buy if you're buying it as a person. I mean, if Sainsbury's or one of the big supermarkets or Argos put together a sub 10 quid kit, and they could do that with the kind of economies of scale that they've got.
Yeah, easily.
Just a major retailer just stepped in and just went, no, we're going to flog these for fuck all, and they'll just plug into a television.
Yeah.
And if you haven't got a television, get yourself to a cash converter. Get yourself a little HDMI capable monitor, or a very, very cheap monitor like that has only got VGA, and then get a VGA to HDMI converter.
Yep.
But it's just, it's just like, this should be the cheapest computer ever. This should be pocket money stuff. It should be where an enterprising child gets the board for a $5 and then sources the other bits they need at like pound shops or from relatives or shit like that.
Yeah.
It should be. I would like to see kids just getting hold of them on their own, but you can't fucking buy them. You can't buy them over the counter anywhere, and you can only buy them if you've got a credit card. So putting that idea across to kids is really difficult, because it's not like they can go somewhere and say, right, I'll use my own money and I'll buy this.
Unfortunately, no.
And that's your target. You need people that are cash poor and time rich, like children, to make the most of it. But it's not. It's basically marketed at adults first, as in people, my age bracket, to buy for their children if they want to buy it like an educational thing.
Yep.
And then it's made so hard to use as a computer because you've got to do a whole bunch of stuff to it in order for it to be instantly usable. They're not very usable out of the box, which is really, a bit of a problem.
It really is.
If you're trying to empower people.
Yeah. Like, this is the thing, we're talking about empowering people, which is why we really need
children. I mean, I want to see anybody that's got a flair for using technology have access to this.
Yeah.
And I don't care what the gender is or what their racial background is. If there's some bright kid out there that goes, oh, I'd really love to have a computer, but we can't afford one. To just put that in their hands, rather than them just sort of like using all that time to watch fucking cats running away from shit on YouTube.
Yeah.
Just say, look, here is your option. It will involve you doing some figuring shit out on your own. But as it comes out of this box, this very affordable little kit, you can plug it into your television, or a television, or a monitor. And then you can do X, Y, and Z with it. And it's just not available in that kind of way.
No, unfortunately. And it really should be.
And like sort of like Arduino and cheap Arduino components, so you can build your own stuff, is really hard to get hold of. You've got to go through an adult to get to it.
Yeah.
You can only buy this shit on eBay. You can't buy it over the counter anywhere. You can't wander in or request it or organise it from a child's perspective. It's just completely unavailable.
It really should be corner shop fare.
Yeah.
It should be like it used to be in the days where you could go to the corner shop and buy. I mean, you could go to the corner shop and buy a ZX Spectrum in the day, but you could go to the corner shop and buy software in the day.
Yeah.
It was that ubiquitous. It needs to be that sort of. That's how it should be. It should be that ubiquitous. And it's just missing a trick. And the BBC's partly at fault for this, for going the micro bit instead of...
Oh, it's just such a heinous piece of rubbish.
Yeah.
It's basically the only thing it's ever going to get used for is programmable badges.
Mm-hmm.
That's literally all it has. And it's just you know, if nobody's bringing that up at the Raspberry Pi Jamboree, I'm going to.
Good.
And I was just going to say, look, you know, this could be so much more ubiquitous. These should be everywhere. You know, they
easily should be everywhere.
Being hacked and had new and interesting stuff done with them for as little money as possible. Because if basically a child in our society can make something, then it makes it possible for a village in another country to afford something like this.
Yeah.
You know, if we make it as absolutely as cheap as possible, you know, or, you know, somebody else is going to clue in on it and you're going to miss the access to it. There'll be loads of little computer systems. In fact, I'm just going to type in, and I don't normally do this, I'm just going to go for cheapest single board computers.
I suspect the Raspberry Pi Zero is probably going to be the cheapest.
Yeah. Yeah, it's coming in at that, but they're just, you know, I mean the chip.
Yeah.
The chip is only $9, but then again, you still can't buy it.
Really?
Well, you have to have a credit card, and maybe you can buy it if you get like still that one per customer.
Yeah.
You know, you need to imagine if children could have, like, you know, really interesting cluster computers, stuff like that. You know, so we're looking at. But nobody's really interested in getting to that sector because there's not a very big profit margin.
No, that's the thing. It's not. It's all profit margins, unfortunately.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just. It just could be so much better. It could be so common that, you know, everybody can pretty much have them. You know, if everybody's got one, you know, if everybody, it's a bit like anything that becomes a fad. I'd like it to become a fad because then second-hand ones of it would become so amazingly cheap.
Oh yeah.
One kid that was super interested could have like a really huge cluster computer running and learn about how to sort out AIs and stuff like that. And like children, I remember doing so much work on my ZX81, and it didn't have half the functionality of the Raspberry Pi.
No.
You know, it didn't even have a tenth of it. It had like 1 kilobyte of RAM, or 16 kilobytes if you had the RAM pack, which wobbled.
Yeah.
It was horrible to use, but even then it was still worth doing because you had a computer. For fuck's sake, you could do cool shit. But yeah, it just bothers me insanely that it's not everywhere.
Which it should be. It should be everywhere.
Make this thing that's very cool, and it should be much easier to get hold of. And you need to rethink. And I know it's not what they want to do. They don't want to be a marketing company. They need to rethink. You know, I mean, lots of supermarkets are trying to be more community oriented, and it could only benefit them to have lots of well-trained IT people just knocking about in the long run.
Definitely.
And I think they'd make a profit on it. But if they were to sell like a really cheap, like a doable Raspberry Pi kit, because I mean, how much do you think a micro USB cable costs? 10p when you buy them in bulk?
Yeah, probably when you buy them in bulk.
Buying them in large enough numbers, say you're buying 10,000, they're probably 10p each. HDMI to mini HDMI connectors, probably the same. HDMI cables keyboards and mice. But I mean, I would be surprised if you went through any family or extended family and there wasn't a spare keyboard or mouse or monitor kicking around somewhere.
Yeah, it'd be easy to get hold of.
Sitting in a loft or a garage that nobody's bothered using. Or
Yeah.
the cheapest one I've seen in cash converters was a 15-inch VGA monitor, which
Mhm.
is, you know, a bit too small for most people, but it was like £7.
Yeah.
You know, so, and they're dirt cheap on eBay if you're going to go and collect them. Or you could just have a kind of right, we've got a Raspberry Pi club at school. We've got, say, 50 members. We would like to get 50 monitors together, please.
Mhm.
So if you have a monitor at home that's not doing anything, if you would be interested in donating it to someone in a computer club, that would be lovely. But it means you don't have to take it to landfill,
Mhm.
you know, and we get to use it for cool educational shit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's just me whining about it. I mean, is there anything you wanted to add?
No, you hit nail on the head there.
It's just not
Pretty
as
much.
ubiquitous as it should be. I think they're amazing things. I mean, even if
Yeah.
all the kid does is down, you know, sort of sorts out a Raspberry Pi arcade thing, they've had to learn a whole bunch of skills in order to do that.
Yeah.
And it might trigger their want to sort of say program a game, and with the, you know, the other operating system that it uses is perfect for sort of like very simple Python games.
Yeah.
But it teaches you programming structure and game theory and stuff like that. So I'll probably leave it there because what I want to do is come back and see what people's responses are. But I bet they're going to be fairly negative. You'd think people would be, yeah, that sounds like a really good idea. And at the Raspberry Pi Jamboree, because there's only one Jamboree in the UK, and it just happens to be in Manchester this year.
Yeah.
But I bet even the people that go to that aren't going to take that on board. They're in their little niche of, isn't it cool we know about the Raspberry Pi and they don't?
Mhm.
And it's like, you know, even people I would consider intelligent, you still mention it as a thing, and it's new to a lot of people, which I find incredible. You know,
Yeah.
these are people that would happily, you know, spend, you know, 200 quid on an iPad Mini to just for surfing the internet,
Mhm.
that could build a much better machine that's upgradable for a lot less money.
Yeah.
It's just, anyway, so we'll close it off there because it just sounds like I'm whining. Really. But that's, and we're pushed for time a little bit today.
Yeah, a little bit.
And we've got a bunch of links and reccomedia if you want to go with the first one.
Yeah, we got the Essential Adventure Kit. Ideas for packing a Universal Adventure Kit. This was thanks to Kev.
Yeah, I mean, I put that on there because Kev was talking about it, and it was kind of like a general idea of what you should pack for all sorts of different things. It's well worth a read. It's a very clunky URL, but it is quite a good read on just the sort of things you should be thinking about, multi-purpose items and stuff like that, just for having a bag in case you. And he did it because he was going on all sorts of short-notice holidays and things like that. But
Yeah.
do it in case, you know, something happens and we all need to relocate very quickly.
Mhm.
I'm going to come back to that thing of Dead Naming now, because I'm going to recommend Sense8 as a TV series, and because it's the most diverse science fiction you're ever likely to see. They've got a person. It's all about people that share a mental link and can and basically sort of take over each other's bodies in order to achieve things. So there's a transgender hacker in America, and a Boston cop, a South American gay actor and his family, I think he's in Kenya,
Mhm.
a Kenyan bus driver, in Seoul there's a woman who's the daughter of an important businessman, and she's amazingly good at kickboxing. There's a sort of gangster type dude that lives in Berlin, and a pharmacologist in India, and they all share this mental link across the world and can inhabit in each other's bodies. But they keep bringing in, you know, they've got this really beautifully diverse sort of like thing. So, you know, sort of like a lot of different types of people are represented. You've got people of colour from Africa, you've got someone in India, you've got a trans person, you've got a gay man, who's an actor.
Mhm.
But the one thing that really moved me is that they sort of very amazingly illustrated the concept of dead naming in one of the more recent episodes in the second season, where the trans hacker is at her sister's wedding, and most of her family have sort of accepted her choice and her need to change gender.
Yeah.
And the FBI busted, and the FBI guys got the courtesy to use her chosen name. Yet her
Mhm.
mother, in front of an entire church full of people, dead names her. And it was a real interesting illustration of, you know, the power of basically sort of telling someone who they should be by using their name.
Yeah.
And I was coming at it from a privileged point. I had a similar incident where I accidentally dead named someone, but this was someone that I'd known as a different gender for a good 10 years. And I hadn't seen them in person since their decision to change, and I slipped up once. And I have to admit, when I was corrected, I had that privilege thing of being a little hurt,
Yeah.
because I didn't mean any disrespect, or I didn't mean to hurt with it.
Yeah.
But that scene sort of highlights the fact that you can wound with a name, and if someone has wounded you with a name that you're not using anymore, if you are transgender, it illustrated how painful it can be when it happens.
Oh yeah.
Because of all the things you've gone through to be accepted and stuff like that, and then it feels like, even if it's a genuine mistake and you're not referring to that person with anything other than affection,
Mhm.
it still triggers that reminder when somebody sort of, you know, uses it as an act of cruelty or an act of sort of like gender decision on your behalf.
Yeah.
So it was an amazing scene, and I think it would have passed a lot of people by, but it did illustrate a fairly important, something that I'm fairly sort of like, you know, hot on. You know, because it's easy to refer to someone as their chosen name when you've only known them as one gender.
Oh yeah.
But if you've known them as a different gender, or they've made a transition, they've gone through all that sort of self-searching and understanding themselves, and all that pain and sort of thinking that they're different and, you know, nobody else is like them, which isn't true, but I imagine it can feel like that if you feel that you're very on your own, and especially inside a family or a friend group. You know, if you do know someone that is transitioning or has transitioned, that would be a thing I would recommend you watch, so you can understand the power of someone. And they're not hurt because you've forgotten or you've missed. It brings up those memories of someone insisting on reminding you that you've had to choose your gender rather than have it assigned to you by biology.
Yeah.
So just like a really amazing illustration of that. And possibly the shortcut to understanding how painful it can be.
Mhm.
I you know, if you're of a, I could stand to have my horizons widened and my understanding of people different to me enhanced. I can't recommend anything other than Sense8 really. It does a better job than a lot of YouTube flat out discussions of the subject. Within that drama, it does it extremely well.
Yeah.
And you may well be able to understand it a bit more in a format that you're more comfortable with. But yeah, it's a pretty amazing scene. And I will go so far as to say it was a bit of a tearjerker even for me. So
Mhm.
off you go. And you're up next, man.
Yep. We've got the Hackaday project on Wi-Fi e-paper.
This looks so cool. I'm really annoyed that e-paper isn't more available.
Yeah.
Because it's so energy efficient. Why is it so expensive? Make it cheap and available. I want it. And this was somebody that literally made a sort of like an e-paper broadcast screen.
Yeah.
I mean, you could update it, but the idea was that you would show a thing like a business card or something like that, and not change it all that often. And this was on coloured e-paper. It's awesome.
Oh wow.
I don't think it's got too many colours at the moment, but it was pretty amazing.
Yeah.
So I recommend that.
That sounds really good.
Yeah, I recommend clicking on the link. It's just like, want one. Where do I get one? Where do I get that little thing that I can plug into my Arduino and muck about with it and play with it? Because I mean, just for things like if you were leaving a Raspberry Pi in the same place for a while, and you didn't need to explain anything, but sort of say what it was and maybe update things. So you could have a static display of, say, the model of server or what it was running, or what website it was running, and then every so often it could flash up status And only when, you say, right, so every 5 minutes, give us the status, the IP address, the speed or the load on it, or the average load over 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And then leave it static. So it, instead of updating like at 60 hertz, 60 times a second, it's updating once every 5 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So it's 300 seconds times 60 is... So it'd be 1,800 times more efficient than a conventional display on a server.
Mm-hmm.
Which is, it's got to be good. That means you can run it off solar if you want to. The
Yeah.
display is the most, technical bit. And that's all it needs to do, is to say it's up and running and all the checks are okay. Once every couple of minutes, that's all you need it to do. But it was a really good thing. It was the way he was exploring how you get easy access to it.
Mm-hmm.
And how you get easy display on it, so it's a good thing. And finally, Vinyl Rewind. If you at all collect vinyl, it's awesome. It's easily the best record show ever. It should be on broadcast television. It's so beautifully shot. The guy's built 2 sets for doing it and shoots it in the most amazing lighting. So, even if you're curious about YouTube channels and you want to see what you can achieve without a gigantic amount of investment, it looks so TV in the YouTube series don't.
Yeah.
They don't look like television very much or very often, but this is so professionally done. It's kind of slowed me up on doing my one because I want it to look like that now. It's not going to. The vinyl series is just not going to look like that, but we'll get to that. I've got a load of records to review and a load of bits of footage that I'm going to start pasting together. So scratched vinyl will be out soon.
Yeah.
And that's kind of us done, isn't it? The outro music will be another Cluster Sun track, Raw Nerve, again courtesy of Shameless Promotions, and that kind of wraps us up for the day. And we'll hopefully be back next week and be doing this a bit more regularly and get some TV out.
Yes,
Kevin
definitely.
has sent me a video on electronic EDC.
Oh,
Which will
brilliant.
be included in the next video, and I'm going out wild camping in the Lake District on Thursday, hopefully. And along with someone that I've known for a while that hasn't ever been on Rangers before. But we're going to do a bit of kit updates and possibly more than you wanted to know about torches or batteries. But we'll be taking that Rode mic out with us, so we should get something nice.
Very cool. Very cool.
Taking a tripod, the DSLR, and a Rode mic, and plenty of batteries, and we'll see what we can film. We should get at least some nice scenery, and someone just slowly going insane about torches. Possibly me, when I just say, please stop. Enough with it. But it has to be said that this chap does know a hell of a lot about rechargeable batteries as well, which could be a useful thing.
That would be useful,
I
yeah.
should try and guide the discussion to things we can use. But yeah, a lot about torches. He has got some very, very, very bright torches.
Cool.
Okay, so I've been V,
I've been Graafen.
and thank you very much for listening. We'll see you again another time.
Take care, all.
Take care. Oh.
Have you ever seen Point Break?
No.
Amazing bit in Point Break where they jump over fences.
Is there now? 29.
Patrick Swayze's just robbed this bank. And Keanu Reeves is chasing him through people's gardens. And he goes to shoot Swayze, but he can't because he loves him so much. And he's firing his gun up in the air. He's like, oh!
Filthy.
Have you ever fired your gun up in the air and gone, ah?
No, I have not ever fired my gun up in the air and gone, ah.